Older cameras are becoming more and more popular these days. I see a lot of people on social media using them and it made me curious. So I bought one. This is Fujifilm X-T1 that was released back in 2014. And I want to know what this almost 10-year-old camera can do in 2023 and why older cameras are being so popular right now. For so many years, photographers, filmmakers and content creators have been chasing better camera. Every year, so-called game changer is released that has more megapixels, frames per second, bit rates, dynamic range and other cool stuff. And don't get me wrong, I love all of that. Some time ago, I was so excited to buy a camera that can film in 120 frames per second and has internal stabilization. And let me tell you, that is awesome. Modern cameras can film in 4K, 6K, 8K, cinema cameras in 12K, maybe even more now. We can even get good quality photos and videos from our cell phones. That's how much technologies have progressed. But with all that greatness, I see more and more people buying older cameras and lenses to get that unique look. Modern cameras produce very good quality image, but it's too digital and sharp compared to older ones. With that unperfect vintage look that just looks so nice. Some people still use film cameras. You can get some for cheap and some are extremely expensive. Film camera makes you work so hard to get the picture. It makes you appreciate every single frame because they're limited. It takes time to develop and scan your pictures, and only then you can see the results. And film itself is becoming really expensive, but the experience is unmatchable. With the film camera, you can really improve your photography skills. When I just started photography and I was still figuring out how aperture, shutter speed, and ISO work together, sometimes I couldn't get the right exposure. So I would just switch to auto because it was easy, and to become better, I had to push myself. And I got a film camera, just like this Fujica, or Fujica. And let me tell you, as the result, not only I had fun, took cool pictures, but was able to take my photography to the next level. There is another option which I'm sure you might have seen on Instagram and TikTok, and that's using a digital camera that has film simulation filters or presets. The most popular right now is Fujifilm X100V. It's an amazing camera, and since it became so popular, it's kind of hard to find them and they went up in price big time. But things were a bit different back in 2021 when I was looking for a fun camera, digital camera that would give me a similar to film experience, and that where I came across the Fujifilm X100 lineup. As much as I wanted to buy 100V, I decided to go with the cheaper version 100F. What's cool about those cameras? Well, first of all, they look so much alike like film camera. You get film-like photos, you can see the results right away, and you can post them. There is probably not a single bad thing I can say about them. The only disadvantage I had is that you cannot switch lenses. Well, at the same time, that camera made me switch to Fujifilm system, which I'm using right now, and honestly, I love them. So after seeing all the hype around X100V, I thought, what if I could find an alternative without spending a fortune? So I decided to have an experiment and find some old and cheap Fujifilm camera, use it with lenses I already have, and just enjoy the process of creating film-like photos. After doing some research, I bought this Fujifilm X-T1 from eBay. It has analog controls, as most of Fujifilm cameras, 16 megapixel sensor, and can record 1080 videos up to 60 frames per second. I know it doesn't sound so promising these days, but I'm not really expecting much from this camera. Let's put this cool film camera away from now and talk about the gear we're going to use for our test. So we're going to use two of my Fujifilm lenses for photo and video test. 10-24, which is a crop sensor equivalent to 60 and 35, and 50 to 140, which is equivalent around to 70 to 200. We're going to use diffusion filter from Moment and anti-filter by Nisi. Let's see what this $300 camera from 2014 can do in 2023. My first impressions was pretty good. The camera is light and compact, provides you good performance, has tilted screen and film simulations. I'm personally using Pro Negative High. I tried Pro Negative Standard, but it does not provide enough contrast for me. The camera is set to default settings. It's set to save JPEG and RAW files, so I can post JPEGs right away and edit RAW later the way I want. I was skeptical about 16 megapixels, but I was wrong. It's more than enough for social medias and small prints. The fact that you can use this camera with other Fujifilm lenses makes so much sense to me, and for $300 you get so much. You can customize your film simulations in so many different ways. For example, I found this website with a bunch of film recipes for Fujifilm that lets you create really interesting and different looks. You can also film videos with this camera. Of course, you won't get the same quality as you get from modern cameras, and my results, in my opinion, were not so good, but with good light and proper exposure, you can definitely get an interesting look. After filming this video a few days ago, I was still not able to get the results I wanted. Even though the camera performed great, the autofocus was working good with Fujifilm lenses, and pictures themselves, they looked great. But they just looked too digital to me, and that's not the look I wanted. So I decided to try something different. I have an old vintage lens that has been sitting on my shelf for many years as decoration. I got it as an extra lens when I bought my first film camera, and that's Vivitar 28mm f2.8 that you might have seen in the first part of this video was right here. And on Fujifilm sensor it becomes around 40mm, which is a great focal length. It has M42 mount and all you need is an adapter. So I attached the lens and went to the park before the sunset. I don't have much behind the scene footage because I was focusing on the process and it was so worth it. The results just blew my mind. I used f2.8 for all the shots and they look so dreamy, maybe even cinematic. And even the process was so much better because it's a manual lens which gives you full control and you're more involved in the process. It's basically a hybrid between film and digital camera. It gives you full manual control, just like a film camera, but since it's digital, you don't have to spend money on film, spend time to develop and scan negatives. You can see the results right away and can correct mistakes if needed. You can take almost unlimited number of pictures, transfer and post them on social medias. But what about video performance? Well, the next day I received the step-up rings which allowed me to use my anti-filter, and to maximize the good outcome, I went to the beach to film some clips. I used the tripod for steady shots and the aperture was still f2.8 for that dreamy look. So let me show you the results and you will let me know what you think. In my opinion, I prefer this camera over Fujifilm X100 lineup. X100V is an outstanding camera, it has an amazing sensor, really good autofocus lens and cool film simulation filters. But for me it's important to have full control of the camera, plus the ability to change the lens. And of course it's so much cheaper. The camera, the mount and the lens itself, it costs around $400 and for that price you just get so much. I believe it's a great alternative. Using this camera for the past couple of weeks made me realize some things. There is so much value in old Fujifilm cameras. And I'm talking specifically about Fujifilm cameras because this brand fits my style. I really enjoy using them and I'm so happy they're becoming more popular. So if you want a camera like Fujifilm X100V, but you don't want to invest that much money or you don't have enough to buy the camera, you should consider the alternatives. There are so many great older Fujifilm models that you can find for a good price. And if you haven't tried film photography, I highly suggest it. You're gonna love it and you're gonna improve your photography skills. Well, it's all I have for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and if you love photography, make sure to press like. Let me know your thoughts about Fujifilm X100V and about my camera setup in the comments, and of course, subscribe to the channel. I would love to have you here.